All right, so let's talk about 10 different tips to help you get approved for generative AI images on Adobe Stock. I went ahead and pulled this out of Adobe's official guidelines. So everything here is literally copy and pasted. All right. So let's go ahead and go over tip number 1. They say know your rights. And once again, I didn't write this. This is what Adobe wrote. I just went ahead and copy and pasted this on the big screen. So they say number 1, know your rights. Review the terms and conditions for the software you're using to create generative AI content. Make sure you have the rights to license your content for commercial purposes. The Adobe Stock team can't give you advice or support for third-party applications, including generative AI software, but we can provide advice and support for Adobe Firefly. So really what they're saying here is like, if you need help uploading some images to Adobe Stock, we can't really tell you, if it's allowed or not. But what you're doing is you have to go look into their policies. It just so happens that we went over a lot of the things that they recommend not to do in a separate video. And if you didn't watch that video, I'll leave a link in the description so you can go ahead and watch it. And I think that will help you out. We went over a lot of different policies, guys, especially related, to the AI side of things. So if that's something you want to see and you want to learn, take the time and go learn those things. I highly recommend you watch it. Even Adobe is recommending you. So number 1, it was know your rights. Know what you can do, know what you can't do. And once again, we made a video on that. So that's the first one. Second thing, don't infringe on the rights of other creators. So let's read what they actually have to say about this. It says, don't include in the style of in your prompts or use visual or written prompts based on real people, fictional characters, or the work of other artists. Doing so may infringe on their third-party IP or personality rights. So really what this means, guys, is when you're creating your image, you have a prompt. We all know that. And it doesn't matter if you're using Midjourney. It doesn't matter if you're using Leonardo AI. It doesn't matter if you're using really any software. Try not to include other people's styles and other people's images. If you liked other people's styles, like let's say there's a certain artist and you like that person's style, look at the details behind the art. Is it realistic? Is it watercolor? Is it a painting style? What kind of features does it have? Is it modern? Is it, Victorian style? What is special about it? Take those keywords and put them in your prompt instead. And that's my personal advice. So, like I said, as we go through these tips that Adobe provides us, I'm going to give you my personal tips and kind of things that I've learned along the way. Something that I also like to add is our members area with over 467 current members has both free and paid content related to running a stock photography business. I highly recommend you check out my free video where I teach you guys how I run my stock photography AI business. I'll leave a link in the description to that lesson. We also have other paid lessons around stock photography in that exact same members area, along with, like I said, other free lessons in print on demand and things of the such. So if you want to check them out, I'll leave a link in the description. But once again, back to the video. So if you are creating different kinds of arts, you'll see in those paid lessons how I kind of manipulate different things to create different types of art that not only is visually appealing in the style of other creators, but I'm not stealing off of their style. I'm not using their names in my prompts. And believe it or not, and absolutely, Adobe Stock can tell because they have the technology, it's called seed technology, where they can analyze the image, see the prompt that it was used to be made with, and once again, this is called seed technology. Each individual image created through AI has a generation ID. It also has, it's also known as a seed, and that seed has a prompt. It's linked to a prompt, and each prompt is linked to different characteristics. So different temperature, different relevance, and all these different characteristics create the image. And these images are used once again for Adobe Stock. So Adobe Stock knows if you use certain images, certain names to be able to create that very image. So essentially, don't do things that you don't own. Don't infringe on other rights of other creators. Okay? Number 3, carefully consider your prompts. It says, use unique prompts to create generative AI assets. Once you envision what you want to create, be as thorough and descriptive as possible. Keep each element of final output in your mind. Who or what is in the image? What are they doing? Who are they? Where are they? What type of lighting is in the image? Is it photorealistic? Consider and describe all the elements that you expect to see in your generated image. If you're new to generative AI prompting, be sure to experiment and learn from others before submitting images to Adobe Stock. Check out resources on YouTube for tips to create good prompts. So here they're saying essentially, don't steal other people's work in your prompts, but they're also encouraging you to go out there, learn how to build great prompts with great images, and see some of the creations. In fact, you can see some of my works on me working with Midjourney, with Leonardo, and other different AI tools, some even free ones like Ideogram or Lexica, where you can see me using them and I come out with some great outputs. And then I sit there and edit them, which I believe is one of their tips as well. But once again, we'll just keep going with these steps. And if you follow those steps, you'll have a higher chance to improve the image, get greater outputs, and really, at the end of the day, Adobe Stock will notice that. They'll use and approve the image, and you'll make money at the end of the day. Number 4, be selective. Just because you can easily create thousands of assets doesn't mean works will accept them on Adobe Stock. We're looking for quality content that has unique value and has strong potential for sales. Don't submit multiple files with similar content. This can be perceived as spam and may result in your account being closed. Every image needs to have its own licensing potential. Remember that Adobe Stock customers expect the best. They don't want images of people with extra fingers or animals with extra legs. So guys, this is one of the most important things, is that when you're creating the image, make sure it's of the utmost quality. Some of the reasons why I tend to stay away from different images that show, once again, characters' fingers or hands is because I know the AI tends to make mistakes with those kind of things. And for me, if I have resources to utilize AI, certain amounts of time and days to use it, like I have a subscription for certain softwares, sometimes I might stay away from people or characters. I might focus on, different elements, flowers, animals, things like that. Things that essentially won't have these errors when the art is being created. And the reason why I say this, and I kind of implore you guys to try the same things, is because, once again, just because an image is created doesn't mean you should submit it. You have the ability to make so many different images. Try not to stick to something that clearly has issues. Adobe is not going to appreciate that. Let's move on to the next tip. Tip number 5. Edit to enhance your images. This is the one I was mentioning. You guys, you have seen me edit my different images many times, whether it be upscaling them, which, by the way, every single image I submit to Adobe Stock is and always is upscaled. That's the first thing. The second thing is colors. Playing around with different settings within the images, blurring, enhancing certain lights, dimming certain things. That can change the image entirely. But don't take it from me. Let's go ahead and hear it from the horse's mouth. Let's read what Adobe has to say about this. Adobe Stock customers often want space to add text or other graphics in their images. So you may want to add some extra space if it doesn't already exist. Consider sharpening, adjusting the exposure, and increase the vibrance too. Do what's necessary to enhance your images and make them look their best. Adobe Stock artists are encouraged to use Adobe tools to make the most of your stock content. This includes Generative Fill powered by Firefly in Photoshop. Remember to label your image as Generative AI if the use of the Generative Fill changed, augmented, or added a new primary subject of an image. If you're using Generative Fill on a photograph only to extend the background or remove distracting objects, people, or intellectual property, then you don't need to label them as Generative AI. So really what they're saying here, guys, is you can make use of tools like the Generative Fill or Generative Expand. These are great tools that AI creates. However, if you have a photograph and you're using some of these tools that can change the image very slightly, then it's not necessarily needed to mark them as generative AI photos if they're, once again, real-life photography type images without the AI. But since today we're talking about generative AI images, it's very important to keep in mind that quality is of the utmost with Adobe. They're looking for things that, or different settings or different things that you can apply to your images to make them look better. Once again, whether it be some empty space, maybe you're removing a background off something, maybe you're upscaling it, whatever the case may be, Adobe wants the very best, and they want the very best for their customers. Look at some of the things that they're charging people for. They're charging hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on different payment plans. They want the very best for their customers, and at the end of the day, if you don't align with that, they're just going to simply remove you off the platform. It doesn't cost them much for them to do that. So keep in mind, create the very best for Adobe stock, and you'll be rewarded. All right. Number 6, find the right size. Use a variety of sizes for your assets. In addition to the square files many generative AI software and apps produce, consider customizing the aspect ratio to popular sizes such as the 3:2 or the 16:9. For more sales opportunities, also increase the file size of your generated file to meet the Adobe stock minimum file requirement of 4 megapixels. Use the Enhance tool in Lightroom to increase the original file size, but don't go beyond 6 to 8 megapixels. So guys, what they're talking about here is the sizing of the photo. The photo needs to be upscaled once again. Especially if you're using Midjourney, if you're using Leonardo AI, if you're using Lexica, if you're using Ideogram, the images, and many other AI softwares, by the way, but the images need to, even DALL-E, the images need to be upscaled. You upscale the image, toggle some of the lighting, and also don't be afraid to make images in that vertical position or that horizontal position. Think of it almost like a YouTube video. You know how in YouTube video you can view it in landscape or the up and down position, the vertical. Don't be afraid, like the YouTube shorts versus the YouTube videos. Don't be afraid to match those kind of sizes on the images. Doesn't always have to be a perfect square. Adobe is clearly telling us that. And I think Adobe's saying that because they're looking at all their creators and they might be doing something somewhat similar because we're all using similar images. Now, if you happen to be using a software that allows you to create these different sizes, that's a benefit for you. For sure, take advantage of that. That's something I do all the time. Let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. It says help customers find your content. Now, how do they recommend to us that? Well, let's go ahead and read it. It says, you're required to select the Created Using AI Generative Tools checkbox in the Adobe Stock Contributor portal before submitting any content created entirely or partially with generative AI software. Failure to do so will result in a file rejection. After you upload an asset, you need to add relevant title and keywords to describe the asset. This metadata is what surfaces your content in the search results. Use words from the prompt in the title and repeat them in your keywords. Order the first 10 keywords by relevance. List the most important keywords first. Do not include irrelevant keywords. Without good, relevant metadata, your content won't be discovered by customers. Learn more about this important topic. And they have a link where you can click on that. But this essentially goes over all of that. So you heard it here first. You add 10 keywords. And by the way, this is once again for the free members. The free members who watch these free YouTube videos here to here, but we already had in the paid videos all this kind of information already put out. The first 10 keywords in your listing are the most important. They're the ones that should be found in your title. They also should be found in the prompt that was used to create the image. Now, once again, Adobe already knows what keywords was used to create the image, but once again, it's part of their process for image creation. Now, if they already know, the question is, why don't they just apply it for us? There's a lot of reasons, because once again, Adobe's a business. They're not going to come out with all the information needed. However, they tell you, list them from most relevant to least relevant in the top 10. So it's something you want to do. You want to look at your most relevant keywords and list them. And those will be the order in which that you're tagging, and of course that will apply to your account. So it's very easy and I'll be very confident to say that your tags matter. Somebody had an argument with me about this in the tags the other day, in the comments the other day about Adobe stock, and they said, your tags don't matter. You just get lucky when you make a sale. And that's not true at all. Your tags and your titles absolutely matter, and they absolutely affect your rate of sales. All right, let's go ahead and continue. Number 8, is this the real person? Did we actually miss one? No, we didn't. Okay, because there was 2 empty slides here. Number 8, is that person real? If your asset features a person or property is completely fictional and created 100% by generative AI software, check the box. I certify that people or property in this asset are not based on recognizable or real property. In the contributor portal, in the uploaded file section, is your generative AI asset based on... Hold on, I think I already read that. Oh, no, it isn't. Is your AI asset based on a real living person or real property? In this case, you must submit a signed model release by that person or that property released together with your generative AI asset. Okay, so this is one of the most important things as well, is that if you're creating an image that happens to be non-recognizable, right, whether it's person or property, all you have to do is make sure you click that it's 100% generated by AI. But you do not have to create a release for that. If the person is real, then you do have to create a release. Now, some of you might say, well, how can you have a real person and yet created by AI? Well, that happens all the time. I can train the AI on a certain person's face. I can also train the AI on a certain celebrity's face. We need releases for those models, those real people. And that's very important as well. So, number 9, how do you make money? It says every time a customer purchases a license to use your content, you earn a royalty. Ensure that you're creating the assets customers are looking for. Study trends by looking at how stock is used in the world around you, and then create content based on those trends. Keep in mind that general categories in high demand include backgrounds, seasonal content related to major holidays like Christmas, Valentine's Day, conceptual images that are time-consuming to produce with software like Photoshop and Illustrator, lifestyle images that include diverse people, and images of technology, food, and nature. These are perfect examples of images that you can upload to your Adobe stock account and that can help you produce more income. The next tip is number 10, keep learning and growing. I can't use this tip enough. I can't say how important this tip is, but for me, guys, I'll give you an example just after I read what they mean by this. It says, check out our generative AI guidelines. By the way, if you didn't see our last video, you probably should go watch it. I'll leave a link in the description. It talks about the AI guidelines. We made a whole entire video on that, so click that link in the description. You'll go ahead and watch the whole thing. It says, check out our generative AI guidelines to ensure to submit compliant assets. The Adobe Stock Contributor user guide provides info on just about everything you need to know. Browse our briefs to find inspiration and see what content to create. And don't forget to join the Adobe Stock Contributor Discord community to check out more tips, participate in creative challenges, and chat with us on other Adobe Stock contributors. So this is their last tip. I'll give you an example of when they say keep growing and keep learning. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was very first starting in Adobe Stock uploads, there were some images that would get denied and some would get approved. I started looking at a certain pattern or history behind the images that were getting denied. Although they told me and they were, informed me as to why the images were rejected, for example, IP, low quality, etc., I thought to myself, okay, I can see why they see this image as low quality. So I started fixing certain things. In fact, I actually started mentioning some of those things in our members area. I remember in one of the lessons, I was talking about when you create certain images and you look at the production of the image, certain things in the details in the background shouldn't be there. Certain images with certain characteristics should be placed a certain way, and that will improve the highest chance for approval. These are just some things that I've experienced myself when creating, guys, the Adobe Stock images. Very, very important to look for patterns of errors, fix them, and don't submit photos that currently have those patterns. Pretty much with 80% to 90% accuracy now. Every time I upload an image, I could tell if it's going to be rejected or approved. And of course, I don't actually upload the ones that are going to be rejected. I filter them from my list. I download the ones that are only that I feel will get approved. I go through the upscale process. If there's any editing necessary, I go through that, but usually there's really not much editing. And then I finally upload them, and That's really it. Most of them get approved. I try to shoot for less than 2% rejection, but I tell everybody who watches, even as a beginner, don't have any more than 10% rejections. So for example, if I upload 1,000 images that need to get approved, I don't want to have any more than 100 that will get rejected. So it's kind of simple to take that process and kind of go by those numbers. But once again, history will not repeat itself if you look for the errors that you're making and look to improve them. Thank you guys for watching. These are the 10 tips that Adobe Stock has provided to us on how to get your generative AI images approved for sale on Adobe Stock. Once they're approved, you're going to make money. It's just a matter of time. My little tip is don't quit until you've reached over 10,000 uploads. Every single person watching this can do this, and it will generate for you passive income over time. And of course, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out. Bye.